Welcome to the Dental Resources Podcast, produced by the Crown Council. This is Stuart Anderson. The Crown Council has spent years working with the very best dental resources available. This is the place where the best in dentistry come together to learn and grow. And so through this podcast, we hope to share the very best ideas, practices, and solutions that dental businesses and resources are using. This will be a source for finding solutions for your practice. Any business that touches the dental world, we are connecting with and sharing it here. Please enjoy the Dental Resources Podcast. Today on the podcast, Spencer interviews founder of Bryant Associates, Bryant Truitt. He's one of Crown Council's longest-lasting resource partner. He's also one of the most popular but feared resource partner due to his line of work. In fact, I guess it's almost the opposite of what we're trying to promote here on this podcast. He specializes in fraud prevention and embezzlement, and will share with us today what makes you vulnerable as a practice. He's got a few tips on how to strive to create a culture of success that will hopefully eradicate fraud and that type of behavior. So please enjoy from Bryant Truitt and the Crown Council's Dental Resource Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to today's podcast, The Best Resources in Dentistry, where today we are interviewing Bryant Truitt with Bryant Associates. And welcome to the podcast today, Bryant.
Well, thank you very much, Spencer. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you and all the participants. Look forward to this and the information that we'll jointly provide.
Fantastic. Bryant has been one of the Crown Council's longest-lasting resource partners. Bryant, how long have you been working with the Crown Council?
Oh, it goes back about 24 years.
24 years is fantastic. And Bryant is in high demand from each of our Crown Council members and is truly a resource to each of our members. We're going to start off and allow Bryant to really introduce the services and resources that Bryant and Associates provides for the Crown Council members.
Well, our firm dates back to approximately 1996. And it is continuously evolving with the world of dentistry. It's amazing to me the way dentistry has changed over those years. And one of the ways that we stay relevant is that I lecture at 2 dental colleges. And that is a eye-opening experience, believe me. The way the classes have changed and the materials that are presented. Also, we work throughout the United States in all specialties and have experience in all specialties. Another thing that we pride ourselves on is that the team members that are with us in the company have been with me as many as 15 years. And like the IT director I have has been with me for over 10 years. And we also work in all of the software, both like Dentistries, both on the cloud and off the software package. So we try to stay as relevant as we can with everything that's going on, and it's not easy to do so.
Yeah.
Another thing I'd like to point out is that we work with only practices. We do not work in corporate dentistry, and which I feel is a real assistance to us with the Crown Council members, because that's the world that they work in, and we're working with them as partners in the world that they work in. Consequently, we're all going in the same direction. So I find that very beneficial.
It's fantastic. Bryant, your business is somewhat complex. Give the listeners the elevator pitch of the services that Bryant Truitt provides.
All right. We do not only through the internet reviews, we refer to all of our work as a review. We're not CPAs and we're not attorneys. Therefore, we work with review data. It comes from many, many sources within a practice, both in the software, but also conversations that we have with all of the team members. And we start at the front door and go to the back door when we do boots on the ground. So we not only touching the inner workings of the business side of the practice, our practices, we do work with small groups. And in addition to that, we also do the clinical side as far as supplies and the way things are handled in the back. We do not get involved in the actual clinical procedures. And that brings up a good point. We have two dental coders, two certified dental coders that are on staff that work in dentistry. And then they are full-time employees in dentistry, and they also help us on the coding side. And that's something I would recommend, by the way. That's a real bonus in practices, particularly when you have multiple locations, to have a dental coder on staff now, just like hospitals have medical coders, are virtually required now in all of the medical major entities. So we cover a wide spectrum of activities, and we also provide support through the areas that we uncover. We provide recommendations to the doctors and the teams about what they can do to correct the situation. But working with such organizations as TOPS and the Crown Council, we do not work in conflict with either the Crown Council policies and procedures that they like to see the practices do, and that goes as well for TOPS. We work in concert. We always keep everybody in the loop and fully informed, and that's very beneficial in the short and long term. So we try to complement everything that the Crown Council does, and as well as TOPS. And we do work with some other consultants on a very limited basis. And we do work with CPAs in setting up internal controls and recommendations and policies and procedures. We're doing a practice now that is a Crown Council client in a practice, a major practice in Texas, in that area. So does that give you an idea?
That's fantastic, Bryant. Thanks for the background on this. Share with the group why dentistry. What led you to dentistry in the first place?
It's an interesting. I'll give you an executive summary. Okay, I was in having my teeth cleaned in my own dentist office, and the doctor came to me and he said, "When you finish with getting your with the hygienist, come into my office. I have something I want to visit with you about." The bottom line is that he had discovered that the office manager had stolen money from his practice. So he said, "What can I do about it?" And I said, "Well, I will have to investigate that and let you know." And that's what I did. And consequently, I became a certified fraud examiner, and I specialize in dentistry through the efforts of working with him, and also Steve Anderson, who he and I go back 23, 24 years. So we've known one another for a long time. And that's how I got into it.
Let's stay on the topic of a fraud examiner, because Bryant, that is where we see your services come in handy most frequently within the Crown Council as of late. We have seen you presenting on this topic more than anything else. Why is that?
Well, unfortunately, fraud, embezzlement, waste, and abuse is a growth industry. It grows approximately, depending upon where you read the source information, the range is 8 to 12% a year. And unfortunately, dentistry is a unfortunate area of growth in this area because it's classified as low-hanging fruit. And that there's a a long history of this happening in dentistry, all the way back to the days of the handwritten appointment schedules and, the book, as it
Yeah.
was referred to.
Brian, if I can ask and interrupt you slightly, why would dentistry be considered low-hanging fruit for fraud?
One of the reasons is the doctor spends what he enjoys or she enjoys the most, and that is in the clinical area, and they do not have the training in the area of business systems, policies, and procedures. The dental schools do not do a good job in that area. And there's a lot of dental schools that still today do not offer any type of business courses. And this is a real shame. Also, there's not a lot of CE courses that the groups will accept business training in. So it's a two-edged sword, and it's not a good one. And if the doctors had a better background in business courses being offered in the dental schools, and the same is true for medical. All areas of the healthcare industry is very weak in business courses. So I just don't want to pick on dentistry alone. It's the same in all of them. And as I said, I do lecture on this material in two dental schools, and it's like looking at deer in the headlights many times, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, with all of your experience, Bryant, and being a resource partner of the Crown Council for so long, tell me how fraud has changed or developed over the course of years, and what today's dentist should expect or watch for.
Well, that's a very good question. Excellent question. One of the areas that they really need to start paying more attention to the business systems and what's going on at the front desk, and that's a real difficult area. The software that is in the system, that is in practices today, both cloud or through the systems that they get from suppliers that are installed on the computers, it's very sophisticated. And many times the doctors do not have an extensive background. Now, the newer graduates of dental schools, the younger dentists that are coming into the practices have a much greater knowledge of softwares, but their real love is the clinical side. They want to establish a high standard of care and patient care in the practices, and it's difficult for them to take time because more and more of the dentists are going toward implants, sophisticated procedures, maybe TMJ. We have one of our practices has even a surgical center built into the practice now, periodontal practice. So the technology has greatly changed. When I first got into this, crowns weren't being made in practices as an example, like they are today. But there are things that the practices can do, the doctors can do to help protect themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they really need to become more aware of that and take greater attention, pay greater attention to those areas, such as there's no reason that a practice today does not have a fidelity bond, employee dishonesty coverage.
So let's pause there, Bryant, and just be very clear for our listeners and our watchers today. Bryant, you share with us what are your best clients doing today to prevent fraudulent activity in the practice?
That's another extremely important question. The first thing is become better in the area of hiring. Make sure that they have someone that they can rely upon in the HR area, such as another resource partner, Barbara Free, but with her years of experience. But become better interviewers, do background checks on the people that they're interviewing. Do One of the things that's really easy to do is let the other people in the practice that are in management, such as the clinical lead or the front desk lead, the office lead, different people, the other partners in the practice, let them also do interviewing of the applicants. Do a group interview, and that will bring out some very interesting things. Also, make sure that your employee manual and your job descriptions are up to date. Too many times we go into practice and I look at these documents and I read them, and they're 5, 6, 7 years out of date. It doesn't reflect what's really going on in the practice. So the applicant that is being interviewed isn't looking at the current world, and that's not a good thing. And doctors are real good about talking about their practice, but they're not real good about asking questions of the applicant. And you can get guidance and counsel from HR and also labor attorneys to help you in that area, and you really should do that. So,
Bryant, let me ask you this. Some of those solutions for best practices, there can be some expense in hiring out some opportunities for ensuring that you're hiring right, or there can be some expense in proper HR to do so, and they may be needed and are all fantastic ideas from you. What if you were to provide some no cost recommendations today to each of our listeners? What would those be?
well, the one that comes to mind straight away is for the doctor to look at the end of the day reports that come off the computer, off the cloud or off of, doesn't matter where, as long as it's the end of the day reports that come off of the system. And that goes all the way down to comparing the day sheet compared to the end of the day report on adjustments. Also, the bank deposit slip that is printed out of the system. Compare that to the deposit slip that goes to the bank, and you need to split this up among several people. So you want to what we call delegation of duties to more than one person to do all of this, preparing the bank deposit and the documents that go to the bank just through one person. Also, just look at the end of the day reports, maybe a couple of days each week, but change the day. Maybe one week you do Monday and Thursday, and another week you do Tuesday and say Friday if you work on Fridays. Another thing you can do is that you can look at procedures off the day sheet. Is the pricing correct? Are the adjustments make sense? If any doctor has an adjustment called miscellaneous, and that is a black hole in practices, because you can put anything in a miscellaneous adjustment, and that's going to cost you money. Sometime down the road, it's going to cost you big bucks. Another one is professional discount, and another one is family discount, an adjustment. Call it a discount, call it an adjustment, all the same thing. It's a black hole. And sign off on adjustments. Make a decision that in your practice, based upon the procedures that you perform, any adjustment over $150, you want to sign off on that adjustment, and use the daily reports as a guide as what really is going on in your practice. That's your best. And go up to the front desk and ask questions: who, what, when, where. You may know the answer, but does the front desk give you the proper answer?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not asking who, what, when, where, and how, and pro and con, then you're not testing the front desk.
Right.
And you're not practicing what we call trusted verification techniques. In they should be able to answer those questions. If they can't answer those questions to your satisfaction, then you need to start peeling back the onion big time.
Yeah.
And that's where we can help you. So you need to make sure that when you do training of people, you cross-train. It's amazing to me how many practices do not do cross-training. And here's another thing. One of the areas that we find if something may be going on is that there is no cross-training, and the office manager or the administrator, someone has stopped all cross-training. Why? Well, it's not to their benefit to permit cross-training. Does that make sense? I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but this is what we find. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is right there are some perfect examples of some no-cost ways that everyone could take into practice today and begin implementing right away. So thank you for those, Bryant. Let me ask you this.
Let me comment on another item real quick. We want to see the practices protect their culture.
Right.
Okay? Just as Crown Council wishes all the practices to have a very beneficial culture in their practice, a growth culture. But we want to protect that culture also. But at the same time, there are times that you're not going to be able to protect feelings in the practice because certain things may be going on that's not to the benefit of the standard of care and patient care. The doctors need to keep that in mind. They can protect the culture, but you can't always protect the feelings. Does that make sense?
That's perfect, Bryant. I think that the culture is one of the main purposes of this podcast as we share and talk about driving a culture of success within the practice. And Bryant, you have made it very clear that we're only damaging our own practice when we aren't protecting it and watching out for what we're building by doing the spot checking regularly, by asking the questions, by turning over a rock here and there and looking for some simple answers on a day-to-day basis.
Excellent point. And it doesn't take much work to go up at the end of the day or beginning of the day and just pick up the checks and look at them, or look at the day sheet and compare it to the deposit slip. What the doctors don't want to do is look at the deposit slip that comes off the computer and the deposit slip that goes to the bank without comparing it to the day sheet, because many softwares permit you to print the day sheet and the deposit slip separately and not at the same time, and you can do funny things that are not to the benefit of the practice, which will hurt patient care and standard of care.
Yeah, these are just great pointers, Bryant, and I hope we're all paying attention to those. Just thank you for the feedback on that, Bryant. I would like to wrap up with a couple questions, which would be, as each practice listening here is trying to create a culture of success within their personal practice, what can Bryant Truitt provide as our resource partner to each of our practices that are striving for that culture of success right now?
One of the things we provide to Crown Council and also to TOPS is the fact that you can call me at any time, and we are available. That if you have a feeling, the gut is rarely ever wrong. If something doesn't feel right, there's a high probability it's not right. And we're happy to visit with you if you're a Crown Council member or with TOPS. And we'll talk about it. It may be something, it may be just a smoke screen. I will tell you this. When we started in this business some 24 years ago, we might find one or two schemes working in a practice. But today we found as many as 11 different schemes working, not to the benefit of the team, the doctor, the patient, or the culture that is present in that practice. 11 different schemes. There's always one scheme that is the pot of gold that the person that wishes to do the practice harm will go back to, but they use the other ones to cloud the issue.
Wow. Bryant, my takeaway today is Bryant Truitt helping us protect our culture. And I love to hear all of the feedback and initiatives that you've taken over the years, and the ideas that you're providing and resources that you provide on a daily basis to the Crown Council and everyone that works with you. Bryant, we really want to thank you for your time and in sharing with us today. Any last thoughts for the listeners and viewers today?
Well, if I may just make one mention, I'm always available to make presentations and study clubs and groups. And it's very well focused, but at the same time, it's not canned. Everything is to their practices where I'm speaking. Okay?
Thanks, Bryant. I think one thing all of us can take away from listening today is one of the greatest ads as a resource partner is Bryant offering him as for a personal phone call or question at any moment you have a gut feeling, which is a huge value add to each of our members. Bryant, thank you so much for your time and sharing and being a part of the best resources in dentistry. Crown Council resource partner for many years. We appreciate you and wish you the best.
Well, thank you very much. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be with you, and I look forward to doing so.
Thanks, Bryant.